This game is so fun. It can make people as powerful in reality as in games. The most crucial thing is, this game has a wife. Keywords of the novel. Mage. Starting from summoning the Gemini goddess with no pop-ups, Mage. Starting from summoning the Gemini goddess, download the complete text, Mage. Starting from summoning the Gemini goddess, read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Limited Wish Technique. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Limited Wish Technique, Parallel World, in 2030 AD, the world financial capital, Songjiang City, Daming. January 1st, New Year's Day, heavy snow. Goose feathers drift in the snow, and the rustling cold wind keeps seeping into the collar, driving away the precious heat from the human body. The sudden southward movement of the cold air brought a silver-white impact to the southern cities that rarely saw snowflakes. Excited children and adults came out of their homes and cheered on the snow. Zhang Qing took the leftovers packed after the food shop to escape the frolic crowd and returned to his home on the 12th floor of Seoul Tower apartment. His home is not big, only over 20 square meters. Narrow yet delicate, with few flaws besides being desolate. Put the leftovers in the refrigerator for dinner. Zhang Qing then pulled over the single sofa and sat in front of the computer to start working. First, edit, dub, and add background BGM from the previous store exploration videos, and then publish them on various platforms. Subsequently, open a certain online article website, publish the pre-written manuscript, and then reopen the codeword software to prepare for tomorrow's update. Busy and busy, the afternoon has already passed. Let's wait until we come back for dinner. Zhang Qing glanced at the time on the computer. It was already past 4 p.m. He then stood up and began to move his body until he adjusted to his optimal state. Alright, everything is ready. Zhang Qing took a soft breath and then shouted softly, "Enter the trial dungeon." In the next moment, his figure was engulfed by darkness and disappeared instantly. Then Zhang Qing appeared in front of a semi-collapsed mine. In front is a dark and blurry mining cave, behind is the chirping of birds and the fragrance of flowers, but there are many humans dressed as miners gathered together. But at this moment, they are all still in this world, even the birds in the sky strangely stop in place. Trial Dungeon. Death Mine. The faint sound of friction in his ear flowed this message into his mind. Zhang Qing didn't care about this because it was not the first time. He stood in place, watching as a palm-sized elf suddenly appeared in front of him. Welcome to the trial dungeon. I am your new instructor. Oh, it's you again. The little elf's originally enthusiastic and cheerful voice was cut off, and at the moment he saw Zhang Qing, he showed a disdainful expression. Zhang Qing chuckled and said, "Yes, it's me again. We've met again." The little elf flew up in front of him angrily, floating in mid-air with both hands crossed over and said, "I remember the last time you received an SS level evaluation. Why are you still not satisfied and choose to start over? How many times have you been this? You know, in your universe, you're the only one left who hasn't finished the evaluation yet." Zhang Qing smiled and said calmly, "As for games, of course, it's because you want to get the best reward. This is a game that covers countless multiple universes. I don't know what kind of existence it was created, and it can be replicated in the world. The gods are also players in it, making it a game that has lasted countless cycles of the universe. Every once in a while, a batch of new universes will be drawn to open new servers, and Zhang Qing his universe world will be drawn this time. Before the new server officially started, he and some others became beta testers for the new server. The called internal testing refers to completing the most basic trial instance once, obtaining corresponding evaluations and rewards. There are 7 levels of evaluation for replicas. D. Level is considered unqualified and the copy was not cleared within the specified time. C. Level is considered qualified, and in the absence of other dungeon conditions, the dungeon must be opened to the minimum extent possible. B. Level is considered good, and it is possible to connect dungeons while achieving certain goals. A level is excellent, and once all conditions are met, the dungeon is cleared. Above the A. level, it is a perfect S. level evaluation. An S. level evaluation requires reducing the time required to clear dungeons without suffering any losses after reaching A. level. At SS level, the evaluation is limit, representing the player's theoretical limit. Not only does it require achieving all S. level indicators, but it also significantly reduces the time required to complete the level, reaching a true limit. With Zhang Qing's exploration of the current Death Mine trial dungeon hundreds of times, as long as he can complete the dungeon within 4 hours, he can achieve a C. level rating. To obtain an S. level evaluation, the time needs to be shortened to about 2 hours. The standard for SS level is to meet all the conditions and complete the trial dungeon within 30 minutes. As for the highest SSS level, although it does not reduce the clearance time further, special conditions within the dungeon need to be met. For example, hiding plot, hiding tasks, hiding bosses, etc. After completing these tasks and still being at SS level evaluation, can one obtain SSS level evaluation. SSS level, beyond the limit, is the highest rating in the game. But achieving SSS level may seem like just an additional requirement, but for players who have already reached their limits, how can they achieve it again? To get an SSS rating, the only way is to have the ability to break through. Breaking the norm refers to abilities that far exceed those of others. Exquisite combat skills, fearless courage, unwavering willpower, courage to sacrifice life and death, vast and profound wisdom, or extraordinary talents. Weight and so on. All of these can help players surpass theoretical limits. Fortunately, Zhang Qing also has the ability to break the norm. Player. Zhang Qing level. 1 occupation. Mage health. 110 energy value. 15 health level. Black Iron level 1 character talent constant enhancement. Constantly enhance a spell used on oneself until one cancels or replaces it with a more effective spell. Professional talent, read extensively. Intelligence +1, energy saving casting. Release the energy consumed by spells. 1 basic attribute strength. 12, muscle strength and explosive power, size of strength, agility. 11, hand-eye coordination, limb flexibility, reaction and balance abilities, physical constitution. 10, vitality, health, and cellular immunity, intelligence. 15, learning and memory abilities, research abilities, and understanding and mastery of spells. Perception. 12, the ability to obtain external information, including vision, hearing, and taste, all come from the acquisition of external information. Charm. 9, not just about appearance, but also about personal leadership skills, personal temperament, and the ability to communicate effectively through language. Among attributes with a human average of 10 points, such attributes can be said to be excellent. Looking at the attribute bar at the corner of his eye, where unconventional talents appeared, Zhang Qing nodded in satisfaction. It is precisely because of this that the little elf does not doubt Zhang Qing's claim of wanting to receive an SSS level evaluation. He can do it. So the elf just advised him, the beta test is coming to an end soon, you'd better complete the final review as soon as possible, otherwise your player status will be cancelled according to the D. level evaluation. Regarding the persuasion of the little elf, Zhang Qing nodded with a smile and said, okay, let's end the trial today. After conducting internal testing for so long, he has already practiced dungeons multiple times, from the lowest level of D to SS, and has achieved many results. In one instance, he almost always received SSS level evaluations. However, in order to become more familiar with this game, I simply gave up that evaluation and chose to start over. He is extremely familiar with this trial instance. At this moment, all the information you want to obtain from it has already been obtained. The internal testing is almost over, and it's time to end all of this. The little elf saw that Zhang Qing had decided to end his trial and asked with joy, "So, should we still take the spell scroll of the limited wish technique? I don't need it anymore, this thing is useless to me." Zhang Qing waved his hand and refused. As an beta player, he can receive an initial capital of 1,000 upon entering the trial dungeon. He can use these initial funds to purchase something from the elf. Weapons, protective gear, magical items, spells, potions, and so on. There are always hundreds of them, and the level of most items is below level 3. Only a very small number of items have exceeded this limit. For example, the spell scroll of the limited wish technique. Starting capital worth up to 1,000. The purpose of this spell scroll is to fulfill any wish of the user. Unfortunately, according to the elf, this is just talk. Traditional wishing techniques are difficult to achieve excessive wishes, let alone limited wishing techniques. But if combined with Zhang Qing's personal talent, it can have an extremely powerful effect. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Perfect Spell. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Perfect Spell. Wishing techniques can fulfill any wish. But if it exceeds a certain limit, the result will be achieved in a distorted way. If you want an immortal body, you will become an immortal being. If you want to have all your wealth, you will be thrown into a world made of gold, where life is more than death. The limited wishing technique has a lower safety limit compared to the wishing technique. Zhang Qing has gained some understanding of this by repeatedly using the limited wishing technique. Generally speaking, promises with low demands can be fulfilled normally. For example, a weapon worth 500 initial funds can be created out of nothing. Alternatively, you can pass the current trial instance, but the evaluation is only level C. Yes, the benefits of limited wishing often outweigh the losses. In addition to these, the limited wishing technique can also be used in this way. To achieve what the maker themselves can do. That is to say, what Zhang Qing can do, the wish he makes can be fulfilled, which is nothing more than exempting him from the process. After understanding the limitations and abilities of limited wishing techniques, Zhang Qing also discovered the parts that could be utilized. Since it's something I can do myself, then this kind of ability can also be achieved. Zhang Qing made a wish, I hope to achieve the best effect when using spells. Because in this game, there is a huge difference between the upper and lower limits of spell damage. The content of this wish is not excessive. When Zhang Qing releases a spell, there is always a chance to achieve this optimal usage effect. But after all, it is only a limited wishing technique, which forms a reinforced state attached to Zhang Qing and can only last for a very short period of time. But it doesn't matter. Zhang Qing's personal talent, constant enhancement, allows even a strengthening state that lasts only 1 second to become constant. So, he obtained a constant state called Wishing Art. Perfect Spell. Even if you leave the trial instance, you can still maintain your own state. Wishing Art, Perfect Spell. Each spell released can achieve the best effect. Since we have decided to take the copy, let's do it as soon as possible. The little elf began to urge on the side. Zhang Qing nodded slightly, quickly reviewing the list he had already prepared in his mind, and then began to purchase the items he wanted. He must meticulously achieve all of this, because after the evaluation of the dungeon is completed, these initial purchased items will directly belong to him, ready for future battles. First, select the spell. Zhang Qing no longer needs to stare at the interface of the Pokémon store, as the content inside is already familiar to him. I need Acid Splash, Phantom Sound Technique, Strike Dead Souls, and Light Technique. These are all level 1 spells, each worth 100 initial funds. Okay, these spells have been engraved in your temporary spell book. The little elf waved his hand and a few flashes of light flashed by, landing on a book on Zhang Qing's waist. This is a temporary spell book that can assist Zhang Qing before he officially becomes a player, allowing him to cast spells smoothly. Then I need a Ring of Airstrike. Zhang Qing then spoke slowly. The little elf then waved his hand again and a simple silver-white ring appeared in mid-air, landing in his hand. Airstrike ring type. Magic item type. Jewelry quality. Green attribute. Airstrike, 3, description. This is an alchemist's training piece, which stores 3 airstrikes. Once the number of hits is depleted, it will be destroyed. Airstrike technique. Able to fly targets that are not higher than their own weight. This is a level 2 spell, and if purchased directly, the price is very high and will exceed the budget. Zhang Qing has already planned all the funds for use, and there is no more money to buy the airstrike spell. Fortunately, in this trial instance, it won't be used a few times, and spending 200 initial funds is enough. And then this one. Zhang Qing reached out and pointed to the weapon rack, selecting a dead wood wand +1. Dry wood wand type. Wand type. Weapon level. Black iron star rating. 1 star enhancement +1 attribute. Spell attack +24. Another 200 initial funds were spent. Weapons are particularly important. Although weapons from black iron 1 star have the lowest quality, a +1 enhancement can also bring good improvements. Unfortunately, whether it's improving quality or strengthening, the cost will double. But a 24-point attack is already sufficient, coupled with his perfect spell state, the improvement it can bring will become very significant. Zhang Qing continued, spell scrolls 4, acceleration technique, mage armor, insight into opportunities, and detection of rodent creatures. In the end, he spent all the initial funds completely. Unfortunately, if we had more initial funding, we could have learned all these spells and not bought these spell scrolls. Zhang Qing complained a bit. The little elf on the side chuckled twice and looked at him askance, saying, "Don't be so cheap and act good. You should be grateful that your profession is a mage, which allows you to have so much initial capital. Those barbarian warriors can only afford 1 or 200 at most. Buying a weapon and some hemostatic bandages will cost them all." Zhang Qing smiled and remained silent. The mage profession was directly assigned to him after he entered the game. It is said that the mage is most in line with himself and possesses the innate talent of a caster. According to the elves, only a very small number of players can become spellcasters, and mages are much rarer. But as a result, the early stages of the mage's journey were like a nightmare, making it difficult to pass the trial. Of course, Zhang Qing is not included in this list. He has the ability to break the norm. While arguing with the elf, Zhang Qing triggered 4 spell scrolls to attach a state to himself. Acceleration technique. Increases the target's movement speed, reaction speed, attack speed, etc. Mage armor. Gives oneself a layer of stance protection. Insight advantage. Being able to know the target's location in advance when facing hostility. Detect rodents. Can detect the presence of surrounding rodents. For spells, all of which are state-enhancing spells. Acceleration is the most important spell, whether it is to increase movement speed or reaction speed, it is important for a novice mage like him. As for the mage's armor, it naturally enhances the protection measures. Mages, as a profession, have very high damage from spells, but they lack a lot of self-protection. Mage armor can effectively resist damage to oneself, making oneself safer. And the insight into the opportunity spell can protect oneself from sneak attacks. Although it is just a simple trial instance, the monsters inside are not dull and have a certain level of intelligence and ability. As for the detection of rodents, it is because most of the monsters in this instance are of this kind. This is a dungeon of a mine that fell due to mice. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The terrifying killing power of spells. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The terrifying killing power of spells trial dungeon. Death Mine. This is the dungeon that Zhang Qing needs to face. The background is simple. In this semi-abandoned mine, a terrifying mutated giant mouse suddenly appeared one day, causing many miners to die or be injured. To restore production and ensure the safety of surrounding residential areas. Players will act as adventurers, accepting commissions to deal with accidents in the mine. So, let's start practicing. Zhang Qing spoke to the elf and began the formal trial. Accompanied by the disappearance of the elf's figure, everything that was originally stationary around suddenly came to life. Zhang Qing strode into the dimly lit mine, and 2 dungeon missions popped up in front of him in an instant. Eliminate Rat Swarm. Kill all mutated mice in the mine. Kill the Rat King. Kill the mutant Rat King. Zhang Qing has read these contents countless times, and there is no need to read them again. He waved his hand, hid the information, and then snapped his finger. Pop. A soft ball of light emerged from his fingertips and then floated around him, illuminating a distance of more than 10 meters. Luminescence Technique Level. First Level Spell Requirement. Language/gesture Consumption. 1 Energy Point Description. Create a light cluster that can move within a certain range, emit bright light within a radius of 15 meters, and emit trace amounts of light within a range of 20 meters outside. As the light cluster of the illumination technique rises, the surrounding pitch-black space suddenly brightens up. That's why Zhang Qing needs to learn this spell. The interior of the mine is dimly lit, and without a light source, it is impossible to see any movement around. Although torches can be purchased, the range of illumination is far inferior to that of light spells, and they need to be held in hand, making it difficult to use them in the face of danger. The entrance to the mine cave is relatively spacious, but as it deepens, it gradually begins to narrow. Not long after, there was a turnout ahead, divided into 2 roads on the left and right. At this point, danger begins to emerge, and mutated mice are right behind these 2 roads. At the beginning of the trial dungeon, there are 2 tasks given. One is to eliminate the mouse swarm, which means to clean up all mutated mice in the dungeon. Zhang Qing has experienced it multiple times and is very clear about the number of mutated mice in the dungeon, which is over 30. Distributed on both left and right roads. That is to say, to complete this task, both paths need to be taken once. The road on the left is a dead end, about 300 meters long, with many deep pits and depressions. Some mutated mice will hide within it. Including the Mouse King of the mutated mouse, it is also a requirement for the second task. This Rat King is hiding in a huge pit at the deepest point, which is also the source of the mutated mice. They dug a passage from underground and broke into the mine here. What Zhang Qing needs to do now is to kill those discrete mutant mice from the right road, and then turn around the gunhead to clean up the monsters on the left. It is indeed difficult for normal players to achieve SSS level ratings, and even SS level ratings are a challenge. Zhang Qing is very clear about this. The right passage is not only narrow and long, but also has many corners and corners. Mutant mice have a certain level of intelligence. They not only like to hide in the dark for sneak attacks, but also choose to hide and not engage in combat when they discover that the enemy's strength is strong enough. Strive to clean the right channel within 15 minutes. Zhang Qing murmured to herself in her heart, then quickened her pace. Acceleration technique allows him to move at a speed similar to a trot, walking flat in a rugged tunnel. Suddenly, Zhang Qing suddenly paused, and a sharp, squeaking sound came from the right, followed by a pitch-black rat pouncing towards him. This mouse has a huge body, the size of a hunting dog. Under the illumination of the light technique, this big black mouse was unable to approach the surprise attack and could only sprint towards this side from over 10 meters away. Mutant Mice Level 2 HP, 96. Zhang Qing was fearless, holding a dry wood wand in his right hand and pointing directly to the opposite side. Acid Splatters. Acid Splashing Level. First Level Spell Requirement. Language Consumption. 1 Energy Point Description. Launches a liquid containing acid, causing 1d3 points of corrosion damage to the target. The green spherical liquid rapidly formed at the top of Zhang Qing's wand and then shot out rapidly. After being hit by the acid sphere, a pungent odor suddenly spread through the tunnel. Zhang Qing covered her nose and took 2 steps back, cursing at the mutated mouse that had rotted into a pool of bones. A mutated mouse was easily cooked, but that doesn't mean it's easy to deal with. For a normal human, this mutated mouse is extremely dangerous and terrifying. Its power surpasses that of many middle-aged men, and it can easily drag hundreds of pounds of objects and run rapidly. Teeth and claws are very sharp, and even leather armor cannot withstand their biting. Zhang Qing once tried that without using magic, he could do everything he could without being a match for a mutated mouse. In the end, even shamefully dragged deep by it, being used as a reserve food by mice. But now, just a splash of acid has ended the life of this mutated mouse. No matter how you look at the damage of spells, it feels a bit too much. Zhang Qing couldn't help but laugh. The 1d3 damage caused by acid splashing is equivalent to 1 to 3 times the caster's attack. Zhang Qing's current basic attack power is 18 points. Subsequently, there was a 24-point spell attack bonus for the Deadwood Wand, which was a total of 42 points. That is to say, a single shot of acid splatter can deal a minimum of 42 points and a maximum of 126 points of damage. The difference between the upper and lower limits of the damage value of spells is very large. If it's other mages who randomly appear damage values between 42 and 126 points, then a splash of acid may not necessarily kill a mutated mouse. After all, this mutated mouse has 96 health points. If you are unlucky and take the lowest damage twice in a row, you may not be able to kill a mutated mouse. Mutated mice that have suffered serious damage may retaliate even more fiercely. However, Zhang Qing doesn't need to worry about this. Because with the appearance of Zhang Qing's wishing art perfect spell state, each of his spells can reach the maximum damage value. That's 126 points. Mutated mice with less than 100 health points will naturally die. In the entire trial instance, except for the final boss, the health of all other mutated mice did not exceed 126 points. So in this dungeon, all the little monsters only need 1 shot of acid splatter to be directly killed. That's also why Zhang Qing needs to buy this strengthened +1 Deadwood Wand. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Acid Splash, already signed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Acid Splash, already signed, Acid Splatters. The mutated mouse, who climbed to the wall above and jumped down at an unknown time, was corrupted into white bones by the spell released by Zhang Qing, who was detected by insight first. The sound of debris falling from a distance startled a similar creature that rushed towards it and suddenly stopped its tracks, turning around to flee towards the rear. But it was too late. Zhang Qingshun waved his hand and once again, the acid splattered onto the other person, causing them to both lose their lives. Perfect casting is really a great reinforcement technique. Zhang Qing walked briskly towards the front, still admiring. Previously, when he killed these mutated mice, it often required 2 to 3 spells to kill one. When facing the rapid sprint of mutated mice, Zhang Qing sometimes needs to rely on acceleration techniques to run and cast spells at the same time. If 2 or 3 of them come together, this instance can basically play GG. And with perfect casting, you only need 1 strike to kill it. You no longer need to worry about the damage of spells fluctuating between the huge difference between the upper and lower limits, each time you hit the maximum damage value. Although Zhang Qing was amazed by the perfect casting in his heart, he was well aware that this reinforcement brought him considerable convenience. But in reality, perfect casting can only be said to be icing on the cake. After all, it's just maximizing spell damage, and for the entire trial instance, it's not a qualitative change. The unconventional ability recognized by the elf does not necessarily refer to perfect casting, nor does it refer to his personal talent of constant enhancement. but rather his seemingly inconspicuous professional talent, energy-saving casting. Energy-saving casting. Release the energy consumed by spells. 1 This profession talent may seem unremarkable, but in this game, it can be called the strongest early-stage talent of the mage profession. Mages release spells at a cost. This cost is the energy value. Energy value can be considered as a mixture of mental, physical, and focused energy. According to Zhang Qing's personal experience, once it falls below 5 points, one will feel extremely lethargic, drowsy and powerless, and unsure of what to do. Once it is 0, it can simply be considered as death. So Zhang Qing's current 15 energy points can only be used up to 10 points at most. The lowest level first level spell requires 1 energy point per release. Normally, when Zhang Qing releases a first level spell 10 times, he must stop and cannot continue. Unless you wait until your energy level recovers. To restore energy, one can only rely on sufficient rest. Generally speaking, only 8 hours of comfortable sleep can restore the energy consumption to its full value. Of course, he can also recover through expensive energy potions, but the elves warn him that excessive use of these things can easily lead to drug dependence and even lower the upper limit of energy points. Therefore, even with the powerful effect of perfect casting, 10 perfect spells will not have much effect in this trial instance. Only energy-saving methods can be used. The energy consumed by each cast of a spell is 0.1, indicating that the cast of a level 1 spell has no cost. This is the reason why the little elves recognize it as an exceptional ability to win SSS level evaluations in trial dungeons. He can definitely make it to the fortress and sweep across it all the way. Just like now. Zhang Qing walked briskly in the tunnel, effortlessly eliminating the mutated mouse that appeared in front of him. These guys are starting to hide. Zhang Qing walked for half a minute without seeing the appearance of a mutated mouse, and cursed inwardly. These guys are too cunning. The screams made by the mutant mice he killed earlier made these guys behind know that a formidable opponent had arrived, so they all hid one by one. But how could these be difficult to hold on to him? Zhang Qing's eyes showed a faint red color. This is the aura of detecting rodents. In his field of vision, once a mutated mouse appears, a red light will immediately mark it prominently. Mutant mice hide in the corners of the tunnel, under the shadow of rocks and pits, and are easily overlooked by the naked eye. But with this detection spell, it is impossible to overlook the slightest detail. Even with this spell, there will still be mutant mice with excellent hiding ability to avoid and quietly wait for Zhang Qing's departure, which has lowered his evaluation this time. Therefore, at this point, it is the appearance of the Phantom Sound technique. Phantom Sound is also a level 1 spell. The effect is very simple, it is to specify an area and emit sound. This voice can be changed according to Zhang Qing's wishes. And now, in order to uncover the mutated mice that were hidden deep, Zhang Qing directly released this spell. Squeak, squeak. Accompanied by a loud cry of mice in the distance, 6 or 7 mutated mice suddenly emerged from the darkness in an instant. They squeaked around a stone, seeming to wonder why the Rat King, who was supposed to be here, had disappeared. Yes, the sound produced by Zhang Qing using the Phantom Sound technique comes from the winning cry of the Mutant Mouse King. Zhang Qing extracted it from the memory in his mind and reproduced it using the illusion technique. This also led the mutated mice around to mistakenly believe that the Rat King had killed the enemy and rushed out together to show their loyalty. The location chosen by Zhang Qing is relatively hidden, and the mutated mouse that rushed out did not even notice his presence here. Therefore, the mutated mice crowded together, forming an excellent target for attack. Acid Splash, although a low-level level 1 spell, can only be used on one target in most cases. But this spell itself attacks with acidic spherical liquid, and when it hits an enemy, the spherical liquid will burst, creating a splashing state. This is also the origin of spell names. As long as the target of the acid ball attack is close, the splashed acid will also be considered as the attack target, causing the same corrosion damage. Now a bunch of mutated mice are tightly attached to their companions, perfectly within the attack range of acid splashes. Zhang Qing hid in a dark corner, waving his wand and softly reciting the name of the spell. Acid splatters. Acid splatters. Under his soft whispers, 2 acid balls quickly burrowed into the group of mice and exploded, splashing a large amount of corrosive acid onto their bodies. For almost an instant, the creaking screams of terror fell silent, leaving only a large area of white bones scattered on the ground. Zhang Qing walked out slowly, exhaling a soft breath. In an instant, he killed so many mutated mice, making him feel the power of the spell once again. There shouldn't be much left. He was calculating the number of mutated mice he had killed in his heart, and the ones in this tunnel should be almost completely killed. We have already signed the contract and will start updating normally tomorrow. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Hidden content of Trial Dungeons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Hidden content of Trial Dungeons. After cleaning the tunnel on the right, Zhang Qing turned back to the entrance on the left. After all, although these mutated mice are quite intelligent and can conceal their own sneak attacks on enemies, they are still essentially just beasts. Faced with the cry of the Rat King, it is difficult to control oneself and still runs out to gather together. Zhang Qing used detection spells all the way to search for those easily detectable mutated mice. If he couldn't find them, he used the phantom sound technique to attract those mice with excellent concealment to come out and die. After 2 or 3 attempts, it was clean and smooth. When preparing to enter the left tunnel, Zhang Qing estimated that it had only been 13 or 14 minutes. The tunnel on the left has been neatly repaired because at the end of the dead end lies the former warehouse, but due to its semi-abandonment, there are no more objects left here, only empty houses. There are tracks laid on the ground, extending all the way to the depths of the mine. Zhang Qing held his wand and walked quickly into it, without any hesitation, charging forward and backward, which was completely different from when he was on the right side before. Under the illumination of the light art, everything in front of them was at a glance, and within the reach of their eyes, the mutated mice were powerless to hide. They screamed, either rushing towards Zhang Qing and being splashed with acid, turning into a lump of bones. Either run towards the back and gather more companions. Zhang Qing can run freely in this tunnel, constantly waving his wand to kill the mutated mice in sight. His speed is very fast. With the enhancement of acceleration techniques, it is possible to reach the speed of world-class athletes just by jogging. Many mutated mice didn't even run as fast as him, and they were quickly caught up by him and their lives were ended. The last one. Zhang Qing silently recorded the number of mutated mice he had killed in his heart, and then he saw a flash on his task interface, indicating that the task of clearing the mouse swarm had been completed. All the ordinary mutated mice have been cleaned up, and Zhang Qing can also relax on the road afterwards. He walked briskly to his final location, in the open warehouse where the mutant mouse king was located. Accompanied by the illumination of the illumination technique, the warehouse was gradually filled with light, and a wary creaking sound came from the gloomy and dark warehouse. Zhang Qing walked into it with the light and saw the mutated Mouse King lying in the middle of the room at a glance. Mutant Mouse King, level 12, Black Iron level 3, health 1391. The health of the boss far exceeds that of ordinary monsters before. With nearly 1400 health points, even if Zhang Qing's spell can reach the maximum damage value, it will take about 10 times to take effect. It can be said that the boss of the Mutant Mouse King is the real difficulty in refining dungeons. Before the perfect casting, even if Zhang Qing could release spells without any cost, facing such a boss would still be very headache-inducing. It is often the battle with the Mutant Mouse King that leads to high or low dungeon evaluations. This dark rat can reach a person's waist when standing up. Zhang Qing has had several hand-to-hand combat with the other person and can feel that they weigh at least 100 pounds. Although not as heavy as an old man like him, the rampage is also very frightening. A slight carelessness and being hit can almost cause disability, and it is normal for someone to be hit and killed if they are unlucky. Squeak, squeak. Without any opening words, the mutant Mouse King let out a loud scream as soon as he saw Zhang Qing come in. This is calling out to the surrounding mouse flock. Unfortunately, all the mice around him have been killed by him, and it is impossible for any mutated mice to come in response to the call. For this point, the mutant Mouse King seemed to have anticipated it early on, and the opening call was just casual. After seeing no effect, the mutant Mouse King trembled all over and two black lights flashed away in a flash. Although Zhang Qing was already prepared, his extremely fast speed was still like a bullet, rushing towards him with a whoosh. And at this moment, insight was barely able to take effect, letting him know that he had been attacked. For this, Zhang Qing had already anticipated and, in order to be prepared, chose the Mage armor as his protection. At this moment, those two black lights also stopped in the position protection formed by Zhang Qing's magic armor, presenting their original appearance. That are two black hard hairs, which are the ability of the mutated Mouse King to emit its own hair. As a hero who resisted the attack of the mutant Mouse King, the position of the mage's armor has also been greatly reduced. But Zhang Qing is not worried, because this is only temporary, and with time, his position will soon recover. For a sufficiently long period of time, the mage's armor can continuously restore the consumed stance defense. Acid splatters. Acid splatters. Zhang Qing waved his wand casually, releasing one spell after another, causing damage to the mutant Mouse King. The intense corrosion made the mutated Mouse King emit a terrifying scream. Twisting his exposed skull, the mutant Mouse King roared and pounced towards Zhang Qing. Zhang Qing twisted her body and dodged the killing of the mutant Mouse King. Although he is just an ordinary sub-healthy male, with the help of acceleration techniques, his reaction speed and movement speed have reached the level of professional athletes. Although the mutant Mouse King pounced in the air, his body turned around and continued to pounce towards Zhang Qing. Zhang Qing began to run quickly, waving his wand backwards as he ran, throwing out a few splashes of acid again. He ran around the house, sliding behind the boss. The acceleration technique has brought a huge improvement, and if he goes out to participate in a sprint race now, he can almost break the world record. But even at such a speed, Zhang Qing was almost caught by the mutant Mouse King several times, always avoiding by a hair's breadth. This is also thanks to the help brought by insight, which allows him to keenly perceive the moment when the mutated Mouse King is about to catch him, thereby increasing the probability of evasion. Zhang Qing released 9 splashes of acid towards the mutated Mouse King, drenched in corrosive acid from beginning to end. The mutated Mouse King's fur has already decayed, and the dense white bones are exposed, looking extremely terrifying. After releasing acid splashes 9 times, Zhang Qing stopped his hand. He kept circling around with the mutated Mouse King, as if searching for an opportunity. And finally, after circling dozens of times, he felt the timing was ripe. In the moment when the mutant Mouse King pounced again, Zhang Qing suddenly turned around and extended his finger wearing the ring of airstrike, silently reciting a spell in his mouth. In the next moment, the mutated Mouse King in the air was directly knocked away by an invisible force and fell into a seemingly inconspicuous corner. But just as the mutated Mouse King landed, its body directly smashed through the ground. At this moment, Zhang Qing finally smiled. The hidden content of the trial instance is about to surface. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Dungeon Clearance. SSS Level Evaluation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Dungeon Clearance. SSS Level Evaluation. If you want to get an SSS level evaluation in the trial instance, then hidden content is inevitable. So what is the hidden content of this death mine? Zhang Qing searched for a long time and finally was discovered by him. The tunnel on the right is not a dead end, you can walk straight down to the depths of the mine. But those mutated mice lurking ahead will definitely not go deep into it, avoiding the threat from Zhang Qing. If this is just a simple game, then it can be considered as a game setting. But the little elf told Zhang Qing that all the copies were actually silhouettes that were once real. Everything in these replicas is something that has happened before. That is to say, the mutated mouse dared not venture deep into the mine, not only reflected in the dungeon, but also in a real scene that appeared at a certain point in the past. So Zhang Qing went in to take a look. Then he discovered that the mine was moving straight forward, but rather a three-dimensional maze. He got lost inside several times and spent 4 hours running out of time being kicked out of the dungeon. But with his persistent efforts, he gradually understood the situation here. As the mine gradually deepens, it is actually the second layer, located in the lower layer of the previous mine. Here, Zhang Qing discovered many bones and various broken mining tools. It is obvious that something happened here, which led to the abandonment of the mine. Later, there were still people coming to mine in the mine, perhaps because people did not notice the danger and continued to mine with a sense of luck. But they seem to have not delved deeper, perhaps afraid of repeating the same mistakes. Zhang Qing, fearless of death, searched everywhere here and finally found a tightly closed laboratory. But the environment here is extremely harsh, filled with poisonous gas. Just staying here, your health is constantly decreasing. In a corner of the laboratory, Zhang Qing discovered a green boiling wastewater pool. Then he watched helplessly as a passing mouse fell into it. After struggling, it climbed straight up the corner pipe from the wastewater. Zhang Qing watched helplessly as the mouse gradually transformed, its body becoming like the mutated mouse he had killed before. Then the mutated mouse pushed open the wall above and disappeared in front of him. In order to explore this point, Zhang Qing also climbed up the pipe, and in less than a second, he left the dungeon due to death. But before he died, he saw the killer of himself. The boss of this trial instance, the mutant mouse king. Above this laboratory, there is actually the warehouse where the boss is located. Zhang Qing was immediately certain that he had discovered the hidden plot, but it seemed that it was not a condition for SSS level evaluation. Because going down takes too much time, unless you go down from the warehouse. But once the boss is killed, they will enter the stage of dungeon evaluation. And if you don't kill the boss, you just want to go down through that hidden pit, but you can't do it either. Because once it falls into the wastewater tank, causing the human body to hang directly. Until later, Zhang Qing came up with a solution and got the boss inside. There are many ways to achieve this in the elf shop. But the most suitable one for him is still the ring of airstrike, which directly blows the boss into the pit and then falls down. At first, after the boss fell down, he only let out a few screams before escaping from below and disappeared without a trace. Zhang Qing can only receive a C-level evaluation on this side, which can be considered as barely passing this dungeon. But it was precisely because of this that Zhang Qing felt there was a play inside. So he kept reducing the health of the boss, and then knocked them down one by one. Finally, he found that he knocked them down one layer below 20% health, causing them to fall into the wastewater tank, and finally there was a new change. Bang! Bang! A few dull heavy blows came, and the floor that had been pierced by the mutant mouse king was suddenly overturned by a huge force. A huge figure flipped up from within. What a terrifying monster figure that is! The whole body was constantly mixed with green liquid, revealing pale bones. Dozens of ferocious mouse heads pressed against the monster's body, constantly opening and closing their jaws, emitting silent growls. This is the mutated mouse king who was thrown into the wastewater tank by Zhang Qing. But at this moment, he died in the wastewater pool due to his low health, and then suffered from the powerful negative energy injection, transforming into an immortal monster. Dead Spirit Giant Mouse, Black Iron 5th level, health value 1422. Not only is the health full, but it has also been significantly improved. This is the hidden boss of the trial instance. Zhang Qing let out a soft breath, and just as the Reaper giant mouse landed on the ground, he raised his wand and recited the spell lightly. Strike the undead in an instant. A golden white light flashed and extinguished, transforming into a spot of light and falling onto the body of the necrotic giant mouse. Just such a short burst of radiation caused the undead giant mouse, which was originally almost 1 person tall, to be knocked back a few steps in an instant. Strike Undead, Level 1 spell. The effect is to release a positive energy ray, dealing 1d6 damage to undead creatures. That is to say, this level 1 spell specifically targeting the undead dealt 252 damage to the undead giant mouse. As if suffering a heavy blow, the grim rat roared silently and rushed towards Zhang Qing's side. Its speed seems to have reached an extreme, much faster than Zhang Qing, who possesses acceleration skills. The distance between the two, which originally differed by more than 20 meters, was only a few seconds before they charged directly in front of him. During this period, Zhang Qing was only able to release Strike the Dead once again. Facing the undead giant mouse that had already arrived in front of him, Zhang Qing was fearless. He just calmly raised his hand and launched the air strike technique again. In just an instant, the massive but bone-only necrotic rat was directly knocked away by a force. Due to the significant difference in weight, the undead giant mouse was directly knocked away tens of meters and returned to its previous appearance. And almost at the same moment, as the Grim Reaper fell to the ground, Zhang Qing had already swung his wand and fired a third blow at the Grim Reaper. Watching the undead giant mouse turn over and continue to charge towards itself, the fourth strike hit the undead again. Subsequently bang. Zhang Qing's fingers suddenly burst out with a cloud of smoke and dust. This was the third airstrike technique of the Ring of Airstrike, which completely dissipated the ring. But he didn't care about it at all, and for the 5th time, he struck the undead giant mouse that fell and rolled on the ground. Finally, the Reaper giant mouse, the hidden boss of this trial instance, was facing Zhang Qing, who had never moved his steps. After enduring the 6th spell of Strike the Reaper, his bones shattered and fell to the ground. At this point, the trial instance is cleared. Congratulations. Zhang Qing, Trial Dungeon Clearance. You have received an SSS rating. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Reward Selection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 8. Stronger Partners, More Difficult to Cultivate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Stronger Partners, More Difficult to Cultivate. Zhang Qing is preparing to choose his partner as his reward. But the elf stopped him. Before you choose partner, I need to explain the relevant matters to you. First of all, for the companions you summon, you must pay for all the necessary materials for the reinforcement. Although we entered the dungeon together, our partners will not receive the rewards we received, and only you can receive them. The only advantage is probably loyalty to players and not betrayal. The little elf's words made Zhang Qingyang smile. You need to pay for the materials yourself, and partners cannot receive rewards for dungeons, which is certainly daunting. But as long as there is loyalty that will not betray, then everything is worth it. Zhang Qing detests betrayal and also fears it. He understands human nature and knows that anyone can betray. There was no betrayal, but it was because the chips for betrayal were too low. Even if we only talk about this game, it can team up with other players, but it cannot block the thoughts of other teammates. If you have a teammate who will not betray you, then it is naturally the best choice. Even if everything happens to his partner, it will add to his burden. Zhang Qing ultimately chose partner as his reward and received a palm-sized card from the treasure chest. Optional partner card. So, let's choose. The little elf whispered on the side. On the self-selected partner card, an illusory interface is presented, with hundreds of character avatars appearing in front of him. These character portraits are arranged very neatly and presented here based on the standard of star rating. Behind the star level, there is also a comparison of its intensity. A 1-star ordinary. 2-star excellence. Samsung's elite. A 4-star hero. And the legend of the 5 stars. You can check the attributes and abilities of these star-rated partners. The little elf began to guide Zhang-Qing to check these companions and choose the one that best suits him. Zhang-Qing took a look and roughly understood where the intensity of the star rating was. Each partner will have different primary attributes based on their profession. For example, strength type or intelligence type. And the star rating is the level of the partner. If a 1-star regular companion is a power type, then the power in the basic attributes is only 12 points. A 2-star excellent partner will have a strength of 14, then gradually extrapolate, 3 stars at 16.00, 4 stars at 18.00, and 5 stars at 20.00. Except for the main attribute reaching the corresponding level, all other attributes also have their own strengths. So my attribute is only 2.5 stars, not even 3 stars. Zhang-Qing looked at her 15 o'clock intelligence and felt a bit speechless. But after thinking for a moment, it seemed that there really wasn't much problem. He seems to be at a slightly above average level among humans. A partner's star rating not only represents their basic attributes, but also relates to their own health level. The elf spoke up and said, a 1-star companion can only reach bronze level, while a 2-star companion can reach gold level. A 5-star companion can reach the legendary level. Zhang-Qing listened curiously and asked, so is the legend the highest? He is not very familiar with this yet, and he only knows that he is still at level 1 of the Black Iron. Of course not, legendary level is only in the 10th stage. The little elf shook his head and said, so partners can ascend stars in the future, and each partner can ascend stars 3 times. 1 star can be upgraded to 4 stars, while 5 star can be upgraded to 8 stars. Zhang-Qing was curious after hearing this and said, is 8 stars the limit? No, some partners can still continue to improve. The little elf pointed to Zhang-Qing's illusory interface and explained, among the 5 stars, there are some golden-edged avatars that can be called the golden 5 stars. This type of partner can perform 4-star ascents. Among these golden 5 stars, there are also some avatars with crowns above them, so they can also be called the golden crown 5 stars. This is the highest quality partner who can perform a 5-star upgrade and elevate the star rating to the highest 10 stars. Zhang-Qing followed the little elf's finger and looked at the only 2 golden crown stars. Gemini Spirit, Aaron/Ella Destiny Textile, Koling. Zhang-Qing looked at these 2 avatars and turned to the little elf. This twin star spirit, if summoned, would be 2. The little elf nodded and said, yes, although 2 are summoned, there is only 1 in judgment. Will the Gemini's strength be weaker than the other one? Zhang-Qing is curious that if it's just a simple game, then the combination of twins may be as good as being alone. But now in this real game, how will it be set? Well, I have to ask. The little elf didn't know how to answer for a moment, she just closed her eyes for a moment, and then said with a smile, Gemini shares a set of reinforcement systems. There is no difference in strength compared to others, the only thing to worry about is that when attacked, both will lose their health points as a result. Zhang-Qing understood and it was equivalent to double the damage. Seeing Zhang-Qing's attitude, the little elf immediately understood and said, do you want to choose the Gemini spirit? Of course, choosing one is equivalent to having 2 people, isn't that making a big profit? Zhang-Qing's words made the little elf laugh, but it didn't seem wrong. Gemini does have such an advantage. But I need to remind you that being a strong partner is not necessarily better. The little elf said seriously, the stronger the companion, the more terrifying the difficulty of cultivation. If you choose the Gemini spirit, you may not even be able to achieve the initial enhancements. The elf waved his hand and adjusted the address of his companion in front of him. 1 star, also known as D.level partner, 2 star is C.level, 3 star is B.level, 4 star is A.level, and 5-star is S. level. The golden 5-star is SS level, and the golden crown is naturally SSS level. So, do you understand? Zhang Qing nodded, simple and clear, and had already explained it. If you want to cultivate a golden crown companion equivalent to SSS level, then you need to constantly obtain SSS level dungeon evaluations, in order to obtain corresponding level companion fragments. But even if the evaluation reaches SSS level, only one will be selected from a level, S level, SS level, and SSS level. If you want to cultivate Gemini, you need to receive a large number of SSS level evaluations from dungeons to achieve it. The little elf looked at Zhang Qing and shook his head slightly. Think carefully. My personal suggestion is to choose a 4-star partner. With your strength, it is very easy to cultivate in the early stage, and it is also easy to reach 3 stars, so that you have the qualification of being a god. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Feels a bit socially dead. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 feels a bit socially dead. 4-star partners, also known as A. level. Ascending to 3 stars and eventually reaching 7 stars can qualify for the title of Fengshen and become a true god. In reality, having a true god who will not betray oneself is an experience. Of course, even to the extent that it is easy to cultivate in the mouth of elves, it is extremely difficult to become a deity. The true meaning is that 4-star partners are easy to improve in the early stages and can help players grow quickly. In the later stage, we will consider recruiting a gold crown, also known as an SSS level partner. However, Zhang Qing felt that there seemed to be some issues with this statement. Because of his talent for energy-saving casting, the effect can only be fully realized in the early stages. In the later stage, it is far less easy than in the early stage. Moreover, SSS level partners, even if it is difficult to improve their strength, should still be much stronger than other partners in the early stages. After all, the SSS level is several levels stronger than the A level. Zhang Qing thinks that he might want to take a gamble. Before his early advantage disappears, he can cultivate this SSS level partner to create a snowball effect. Since you have chosen so, I can only wish you good luck. The little elf felt a bit regretful about Zhang Qing's choice, but without hesitation, he waved his hand. In the next moment, a card appeared in Zhang Qing's hand, depicting the portrait of the twin star spirit. Can we still see the attributes of the future? Zhang Qing's eyes lit up, and on the illusory interface of the card, 2 attribute columns of twin star spirit appeared. One is the attribute bar when summoned at the current level 1, and the other is the attribute bar when raised to the maximum in the future. Gemini Spirit, Aaron/Ella level. 3000 Strength. 50, Muscle Strength and Explosive Power, Size of Strength, Agility. 47, Hand-Eye Coordination, Limb Flexibility, Reaction and Balance Abilities, Constitution. 46, Vitality, Health, and Cellular Immunity, Intelligence. 50, Learning and Memory Abilities, Understanding and Mastery of Spells. Perception. 45, the ability to obtain external information, including vision, hearing, and taste, all come from the acquisition of external information. Charm. 48, not just about appearance, but also about personal leadership skills, personal temperament, and the ability to infect language. Star rating. 10 stars health level. Eternal 5th level health. 64446200 attack. 7005020 feature. Gemini, sharing all attributes and reinforcement system, passive-born weapon. As a star goddess, Aaron/Ella gains an exclusive artifact that will receive a boost every time her health level increases. Perfect defense. When the damage suffered does not exceed 10% of one's own attack value, the damage is invalid. If it exceeds the value, the damage will be reduced by 10% this time. Gemini Blessing. Ella's damage and healing effects increase by 10% per Irene gains a 10% blood-sucking effect. Star Armor. When entering battle, the damage of all allies increases by 5%. Mysterious / must kill Chaos Descent / Eternal Descent. Gemini Fusion, giving birth to the Chaos Lord / Eternal King, conducting a terrifying attack on surrounding enemies. What terrifying data! Zhang Qin couldn't help but smack her mouth as she looked at the attributes of the Gemini spirit. From this attribute bar, he also learned that the future level limit is somewhat beyond his imagination. At level 3000, there is actually an eternal level 5 health level. What level is this? However, from a 10-star perspective, this should be a much higher level than true gods. God above God. This attack has 7 million, and surprisingly, its health can reach over 60 million. The expansion of its value is a bit scary. Zhang Qin clicked twice, but upon reflection, it didn't seem to be a big problem. This is a character that is several levels higher than the true god. If you attack 7 million, it may only be data from naked clothing. Anyway, just seeing these data alone, Zhang Qin cannot give up summoning the Gemini. So, before summoning, I need to explain something to you. The little elf said to Zhang Qin, summon your companions at no cost. The summoned companions will not be completely loyal to you without reason. The elf's voice was somewhat low. You need to use what you most desire to maintain the summoning of both sides. Are you willing? What is the most desired thing? Zhang Qin thought for a moment and asked, what can I long for? Money, beauty, immortality. He smiled, everything was indifferent. Take it. But the little elf did not listen to Zhang Qin's words. Instead, his gaze flickered with the brilliance of seeing through the world, and he shook his head and said, the thing you crave the most is love. Love. Upon hearing this word, Zhang Qin couldn't help but look left and right, feeling a bit embarrassed and afraid of being seen by others. What era is this? If you say this word, it means the society died. Okay. Moreover, why didn't he know that what he longed for the most was love? Don't you really crave it? The elf's gaze seemed to penetrate Zhang Qin's heart. Think carefully, do you really crave to be loved? For example, your parents' love for you. Zhang Qin's original smile was a bit stiff, but then remained silent. He had both parents, but when he was a child, he divorced and found his other half. But Zhang Qin, who was only a few years old at the time, was despised and kicked around like a ball. Having such parents is not much different from being an orphan. Fortunately, they were not yet able to poison him and watch him starve to death. But instead of spending a little money every month, I found a nanny to raise him. On the day of his coming-of-age ceremony, he spent a portion of his money to buy a small apartment of over 20 square meters in this land of great value in Songjiang City. At first, Zhang Qin was a bit resentful, but later he finally saw through. After all, although the small apartments of over 20 square meters are surprisingly small, they are also worth over 10,000 taels of silver in the commercial circle of this world's top financial city. Even if the value of silver plummeted more than 100 years ago, from 1,000 won to 1 liang now, over 10,000 liang of silver is still the savings of an ordinary person's life. So apart from the love and care from his family, his parents didn't give him much else. Growing up in such an environment, Zhang Qin's personality became much more solitary, unwilling to communicate with others, and even now he can't find a girlfriend. In the past, he used to be restless in his youth and wanted to be accompanied by women, but the increasingly acute gender issues also made him fearful and unwilling to approach. In the later stages, he simply felt indifferent and lived comfortably alone. Perhaps, these are just feelings of regret, not too much longing. Zhang Qin said calmly. The little elf just chuckled. He had seen too many people with such a tough mouth like a dead duck. It's nothing to yearn for love, at least more than half of the 100 players are like this. The elf smiled and said, since the contract is maintained with love, what kind of love do you want to use to get along with the Gemini? Is it father-daughter, siblings, or husband and wife? What does it mean? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. This game gives wife off. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. This game gives wife off. What is love? Search online and there will be countless answers to choose from. This indicates that the concept of love is very vast, even making it difficult for people to choose. There is love between individuals, as well as love for the world and the universe. There is both noble love and selfish love for oneself. There is love from parents towards their children, as well as love from humans towards non-humans. There is admiration and love from fans towards idols, as well as kindness from the elderly towards young children. There is love between men and women, as well as love between brothers and sisters. It can be said that the classification of love is too broad, even penetrating all aspects of everyone. The little elf said that more than half of the players crave love, without any exaggeration. So now, Zhang-Qing needs to choose one of these countless loves as a call to maintain his relationship with his partner. The little elf also gave 3 commonly used ones: father and daughter, siblings, and spouses. It's all about making choices around family. Because of family relationships, it is the most solid and close type. Zhang-Qing thinks it's very good and agrees with it. Let's get married. Zhang-Qing only thought for a few seconds before giving an answer. Because Gemini is considered a stranger after all, suddenly becoming his own daughter or sister is difficult for him to accept in his heart. On the contrary, it is a couple, which is itself a way for strangers to combine into family. There hasn't been much conflict. Okay, you can use the Gemini Spirit Summoning card now. As soon as the little elf finished speaking, Zhang-Qing couldn't wait to use it. But after waiting for a moment, there was no change. This made Zhang-Qing have some doubts, and the little elf said angrily, "Are you a companion of these residual sounds in the game? Since it's someone who can be with you in reality, it's naturally a real existence. When you return to reality, the Gemini spirit will naturally appear next to you." The words of the little elf made Zhang-Qing smile a bit, and he hoped to go back as soon as possible. "I have never touched a woman's hand since I was young, and suddenly the game sent me a wife, which is a kind of expectation that everyone knows very well." According to the elf, after summoning a companion in reality, they will have common sense of the current world and there is no need to worry about the other party knowing nothing. However, partners will also have no knowledge of the content in the game, as they will also play together as similar players. "I know you're in a hurry, but don't worry for now." The little elf could see Zhang-Qing's restlessness. She suppressed her smile and waved her hands, saying, "This is the end of the reward release. You still need to become a real player. The evaluation of the previous dungeon has not been completed yet, and Zhang-Qing is still just a trainee player waiting to be observed. Many functions have not been enabled, and many things have not been officially activated yet. Okay, please hurry up." Zhang-Qing didn't hide his inner feelings and made a gesture of invitation to the little elf. "Okay, I'll try my best to be faster." The little elf smiled and said, "First of all, I am honored to congratulate you on becoming an official player of the game Infinite War. The internal testing is about to end, and the official running time will be notified 1 day in advance." The little elf began to introduce some true secrets to Zhang-Qing. The opening of the official server will be a server group composed of 12 worlds. It also represents that there will be countless wars between you, whether in the game or in reality. Please take necessary protection. Zhang-Qing's face twitched. He had thought the situation wasn't very good when he heard the name of the game before, but now it doesn't look very good. Of course, you don't need to worry too much, this kind of war between servers won't start from the beginning. The little elf comforted, before that, you will have a lot of time to make yourself stronger. Subsequently, the little elf began to say more precautions. This internal test is actually a competition between 12 worlds. The evaluation received by beta players in each world will measure the heritage and strength of each world. When it officially begins, the higher-ranked world will receive certain rewards, enhance its own world strength, and gain an advantage in future world wars. As Zhang Qing, who won the SSS rating, he brought a staggering high score to the world, and his ranking soared to the top in an instant. If there are no other players in the world who have also received SSS level reviews, then your world will become the first place. The little elf's words surprised Zhang Qing quite a bit. Are you saying that there is only me with an SSS rating? Do you think SSS level evaluations are easy to obtain? The little elf gave him a displeased look and said, with your talent, it may be very difficult to get an SSS level evaluation in the future, so summoning Gemini is really not a wise choice. In fact, it's not just SSS level, and even the evaluation of SS level has not been received by anyone. Only at level S can a very small number of players obtain it. But this does not mean that Zhang Qing's strength is the strongest, just stronger than these players with S.level evaluations. However, his ability is most suitable in this trial instance, and by chance, he achieved such results. Zhang Qing smiled and didn't say much. Subsequently, the elf continued to explain some of the content of the official game. After the official game starts, players will have 3 different ways of playing. The first type is replica. Virtual dungeons, like trial dungeons and games. You can improve your character level, obtain corresponding spell abilities, magical equipment, and various props by challenging dungeons. There will be no danger in the dungeon, and death will only bring the player back to reality. You can continue playing the game in a few days. In addition, there are real copies. This form is more like tracing back to the past. Once the player breaks their destiny, they can change the past and bring it to the present. But dying here will result in the loss of memories and a significant deduction of lifespan. The second type is the main world. This is a large world where players from all over the world can participate in trading, battles, and adventures. When a certain number of players leave the beginner stage, the main world will open. Death in the main world will result in certain punishment measures for the player. If the level is lowered, items are dropped, and you cannot enter the main world for a certain period of time. The third way of playing is real battlefield. You can get everything here, but you will also lose everything. It's extremely dangerous here, and once you die here, it's true death. When the world intersects and an infinite war begins, the real battlefield will open. To achieve this step, players need to create the existence of a third field. End of this chapter.